Hello, happy Friday, Make It Rain fans. Welcome to episode number 5 of Make It Rain. Today, we have another 20K winner here on the show with the crew, Theric, Jake, and the 20K winner himself, Mr. JJ. Good morning, everyone. Congratulations, JJ. What a sweat. What a win. How you feeling, my man?
Man, it's crazy. I obviously wanted the 100K. I was threatening for the lead most of the time, but thankful to all my MVHQ fam for sweating me. It was crazy. Everyone was cheering me on as each point was scored. So really appreciate all the support there, and woke up like, wow, I won 20K in Rainmakers. So can't believe it. We did it back to back, guys. What's going on? I guess each host will have their turn. So which one of you?
Hopefully by the end of the season. Yeah.
I know.
I shot you this week.
We're going to start calling this the weekly bink on this show. Yeah. I guess, it's going to be a nice little tradition for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I won't be winning 20K because I'm not playing contests that high, but hopefully 10K one of the days.
Oh yeah, hopefully, man. Yeah. We'll get there.
We'll get you there. Absolutely, man. No worries about that. Just as long as we keep staying in the green, I think at the end of the day is the goal of this, and still having fun with it. Yeah.
So here's my lineup. I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. I went with the patented Joe Burrow Chase stack. So handshake to Poopaloop there. We won with the same stack. Funnily enough, you won with the Giants player, and I'm a Giants fan, and I won with the Raiders player, and you're a Raiders fan, so it just was meant to be.
It really was. It was poetic justice.
But yeah, so I'll just walk through what my thought process was. I really just, wanted the QB plus wide receiver stack. I kind of had multiple going, and Burrow and Chase had just a juicy matchup, right, against the Atlanta defense, which has just been absolutely terrible, right, in all aspects, against the run, against the pass. And, Joe Burrow almost had 300 yards in the first half. And so, while Jamar Chase did really well, and I kind of wish he didn't do as well, just because, now he tweaked his hamstring or whatever it was, and he's out for a few weeks. But hey, man, gotta respect Chase for putting up a huge day for me. But I was pretty high on Aaron Jones. I think I talked about it on the stream last time. Definitely started talking about it in MVHQ when we did our little session right before the slates, and just talked about how, last time when Matt LaFleur was talking about his usage, that, he scored 30 points the last time. They gave him all the carries, and they really involved him in the offense. And you kind of saw the same thing here. Of course, got lucky with the last touchdown, but hey, that's what you need to do, right? You need to make good lineups and just have a bit of luck, and that'll take you there. This one was one that I really relied on late swap, right? I had that good 3 shell going into the late games, had Mike Williams in there, and I had this rare slot kind of flexed out. So I just went with the top projected play, which was Josh Jacobs, and boy, did he smash to the tune of almost 40 points. So, had a good showing for my players. Got second in most painful fashion, right? Lost a tiebreaker there. My serial total was about 258, and the other guys was 157. So really shows you that serials matter, although I think that with a 5-player pool, it would be more of an edge case. But, I can't complain.
It's one of those things everybody's been saying, oh, serials only matter in Showdown. They don't matter in regular, but certain cases, it's the difference between 20K and 100K. So.
Hey, it keeps us hungry, right? It'll keep me hungry. I'm just looking for the next one, and we're going to continue to make it rain on this show.
I don't think anybody's going to complain about winning 20K in this.
No, sir.
Yeah, I want to touch on that point again about the serials. Showdown for sure. I think we've talked about this in previous episodes. Serials matter a lot in Showdown just because there's such a limited player pool that you're likely gonna get duped, especially if you're trying to play the highest projected or a little bit off of the highest projected. There's gonna be duplicates, and you want those low serials. But in this case, this is the main slate right here, right? As we can see in this elite contest, this is the main one. There's 2,200 entries. That's quite a bit still, and if you're playing, JJ kind of got unlucky. He was a bit off of whatever the highest projected was. He did get a little unlucky here, for sure, in terms of getting duped. But still, it kind of shows like if there's a lot of people looking to just play the highest projected type of matchups, especially the highest projected stacks. The Burrow Chase stack was super popular. So kind of being wary of your contest selection and your serial numbers as well. So something like if you're playing like the same lineup, but it was in like a 300 person contest, like it'd be pretty unlikely that you're getting duped here. So just being aware of that, like if you're playing like the main core or the main rare, like there's like thousands of entries in those ones. And if you're playing a highest projected lineup, if you're only like a little bit off the chalk, like there's a pretty good chance you're getting duped. So if you got to go a little bit, you either want to go low serials or you want to go a little bit farther away from what the main chalk is.
That's one thing that you're going to see so much in core is people are going to be playing whatever their optimizer spits out, whatever the projections say is the best players, and just jamming that in and hoping it caches. We've seen in many tournaments, it actually gets you pretty high up there. So you're just going to see trains of that. And so while it's especially like a legendary tournament, it's probably not that important to worry about duping. But especially when you're getting down to core and rare, and even as we can see sometimes in elite, if you're going to not be playing off the wall players, if you're just going to be playing the best projected players, which in my opinion you should be for the most part, then you're going to see people dupe. And so the low serials, especially in the lower contests, do matter. And even in core, like the serials for some of the sets go up into the tens of thousands. And so even getting like a 500 serial, you don't need a top 10 serial in core for the most part. If you can just get low enough that you're not competing against other people that have a 10,000 serial score, then you should be good.
All right. Well, those are all really good points, everyone. Just so much excitement. I think we're having so much fun playing this game. JJ, another huge congratulations on that big hit. It's so nice. Just, we're putting in so much work and grinding out the strategies, and to see it actually kind of pay off for us and having some success is really awesome to see. So congratulations again. Hopefully the wife is going to enjoy a little spending cash here moving forward.
Yeah, I took a line straight out of the poop blue book. Man, I just cashed right out, gave her most of it, and said, "Hey, let me." It's to pay for putting up with dealing with my whining. I whine a lot on game day. You guys can share with the crowd. Like Josh Jacobs, maybe 5 minutes in, I was like, man, he's not getting a single touch, blah, blah, blah. And then, he puts up 40. So crying works sometimes,
That's the nature of the sweat, right? That's why we sweat it out. So let's start looking ahead here a little bit and move into the week ahead, and maybe take a look at some of the contests and what the data is telling us. Derek, did you want to touch on some of the contest data and what you're seeing behind the scenes?
Yeah. So right now it seems that the contest entries are pretty stagnant at this point. We're seeing a little fluctuation depending on which teams are in and out for the weeks, but we're not seeing a drastic increase in the amount of entries in most contests. The one thing that continues to be an issue, and it may just be people trying to jam in what they have, but if you're trying to take down, especially these tournament contests, you really need to think about the players that you are playing. You're aiming for, especially in the lower contests, and if you're playing legendary, it's a different story. But if you're playing core, if you're playing rare, even somewhat elite, you're aiming sort of around like between a 140 to 160 range for your lineups. And I'm seeing people play quarterbacks like Ryan Tannehill and wide receiver like Romeo Dubes and Wan'Dale Robinson. And they're great for cash. If you're just trying to aim for the bankroll builder and you only need 60 points, something like that, to cash, they're great. They have a decent floor. They're going to see volume. They're going to see probably 10 to 15 points. But you really need a lineup of players that can hit 20, 25, 30 points. And if you're playing players where their ceiling is probably 20 points, you need a lot of players to fail in order for you to win with that lineup. And usually we've seen, while overall scoring is down, we've still seen plenty of scores in the 30s. We've seen a couple 40-point scores. And you're just not going to take down the lineups that have Tyreek Hill going for 40, Josh Jacobs going for 40, things like that. And so you really need to think about, if you want to just minimum cash, I would really recommend going into the bankroll builder and just doing that instead, rather than putting lineups that will probably get you 100 points, but that'll never win a tournament. So that's the main thing I'm seeing, is just too many lineups that are using players that just do not have the ceiling to take down the tournaments. It's not like regular DFS where there is value players where, because of their salary, they are perfect for this. You can't play Cade Otton just because he's 2.5K and he's going to get you 15 points, which is perfect, and it allows you to play more players. The salary is whatever you pay for it, and there is no benefit to paying down for someone that's going to get you less points. So that's the main thing I'm seeing right now. People are still stacking. They're focusing on the quarterback wide receiver stacks. I'm not seeing very many huge game stacks, but right now that's not a big thing that has been taking down tournaments, because you're just going for ceilings. But if you're playing in core, especially if you're playing in core, think about selling that Christian Kirk and upgrading to a Amon-Ra St. Brown, or think about selling that Ryan Tannehill and upgrading to at least a Kyler Murray or a Joe Burrow, somebody that can put up 30, 40 points.
Yeah, great points, Derek. And that's what I think unlocked it for us and the crew here early on, was you kind of identifying that there's players that you absolutely don't want to play in Rainmakers. And really, like, to further your point, like with the double stacks and people going to single stacks, like, it makes sense because it's pretty unlikely for both your stacks for your wide receivers. Let's say if you play two wide receivers stacked with the quarterback, to both score like 30 points plus, right? Pretty unlikely.
You need an insane game environment like we got with Detroit Seattle, when it went for, what was it, 80, 90 points was the game total. And so unless you're going to get a game like that, which I think a lot of people think the Miami-Detroit game is going to be that this week, but unless you get a game environment like that, you're probably not going to win with a complete game stack. You can get a bring back, but also think about the bringbacks. If you're doing last week, everybody that scored really highly did not do an Atlanta bring back with their Cincinnati stack. And it's because maybe in regular DFS you might be able to get enough value, but we've seen what they like to do in Atlanta. They like to go slow. They like to run the ball, but they like to run the ball with multiple different people. And there really is a very, very, very slim chance that Drake London or Kyle Pitts or even Tyler Algier are going to put up a 25, 30-point game just because of the way the team plays. And so when you're playing a stack that for an air raid offense like the Bengals, really be conscious about, can a bring back, I mean, we've been drilled into our heads with DFS, a bring back is important, but really be conscious with, is a bring back necessary, or is it going to lower my ceiling if I do that? This Detroit-Miami game coming up, obviously you could go to a Tyreek and bring it back with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but there's going to be plenty of games that you probably won't want to do or bring back. The games have been awful this year for the most part. We get a couple good games and mostly awful games. And so trying to target the teams with a bring back just because you've been drilled into that's what you're supposed to do is probably going to lower your ceiling in most cases.
Yeah. I agree fully on all the points you were saying. I think a good discussion point is, it's something I think, and I'm curious if you guys agree on, if you can't really afford to upgrade these players, from like a Curtis Samuel to Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill, or if you're going from like you said, I forgot the players you use as examples, but these kind of guys who don't have as much ceiling, like a Romeo Dobbs, which Maybe he will eventually. I don't know. We'll see. He's still rookie.
If he can catch a football, he may eventually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He hasn't been playing too hot.
Things, right?
But like these kind of guys, if you can't afford to go up to it in your tier, then I would go down a tier. I would sell those guys off, and I'd go down a tier, and that way you can afford the higher, the higher players as well. So really, like you gotta be able to field a lineup that can compete at the highest level every week, or else you're really kind of sacrificing a lot of expected value, I would say, to not be able to hit those top prizes, because that's where all the money is in these contests, is right at the top. And if you can't strike in that distance, then you might as well just play like DFS cash games or something like with your money instead, because it's you're really going to need that upside. And maybe you could have one of these guys in your lineup and maybe they pop off, right? But you can't have a lineup full of them. The projection's just not there. So maybe you can mix them in one and the rest of your lineup is studs. It's not as ideal. But if you can't get up to them, if you can't afford to get up to them, that's cool too. I would just recommend, going down a tier. So say you're in rare, you go down to core. If you're an elite and you can't afford these high tier elite guys, go down to rare instead, sell your guys off and build an elite, not an elite, but a really good rare team instead, and then really strike for that top prize every week. And I would say you're probably gonna have a little more fun with it too, because your team's gonna be good every week and you're gonna be sweating every week for these contests. So that's personally what I would recommend. I don't know if you guys feel the same.
No, I completely agree. If you can't afford $300 to $400 to build a good rare team, like a rare team that's going to compete for the top, just spend like $100. It's not even going to cost $100, maybe $75 for a core team that's going to be elite. You can put in Josh Allen, you can put in Stephon Diggs, you can put in all the different players. And in core, even core, the most expensive players are $25, $30 at most. And so you can really make an absolutely elite lineup for $50, $75 that will last you the rest of the season, ignoring obviously the showdowns that you have to swap players out, versus $300, $400 that you're going to be paying for a rare lineup, or a couple thousand for an elite lineup. So I know the 100,000 to first is really desirable for everybody. Everybody sees the elite and really wants to get up there and get that 100,000. Ideally, Rainmakers is going to be here next year. So spend this year just building that bankroll, working on the contest, and then just save that up and bring that in for a higher tier next season, if you can't afford it, and especially do not go into severe debt just so that you can play the legendary and elite contests. Just focus on, like, there's still we're brand new to this. This is a first season. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of issues. People are playing suboptimally in a lot of places, so you have plenty of time to figure it out. And if you cannot afford it, just go down a tier.
Derek, where were you a couple weeks ago, man? I could have used that advice.
Yeah, no, I really wish I had known that on some of the things, because I definitely spent too much money. I'm looking at some of the prices I spent, seeing that I spent $80 on an Aaron Jones, and now he's $30 down in rare, and I'm just thinking maybe I should have waited a few weeks or just played core for a little bit longer first, rather than blowing that much money on rare. So if my thoughts is right now, just basically looking at the marketplace, if someone's wanting to come in right now, we're still seeing slow declines in rare. We're still seeing slow declines in elite, but in core prices, like, it's basically bottomed out at this point. The elite of the most elite players are $20, $25. The good tournament plays, but they have up and down weeks, are between $10 and $20. And then the cash plays, the defenses, the showdown slates are between $1 and $10. And it just seems to be kind of bobbing throughout the week, as we can see on the graph. And JJ, if you want to go into this further, but it just seems like, as far as pricing goes, until we get close to the end of the season, core is probably not going to tank your bank account. It's probably not going to go to zero nearly as quickly as these higher tiers are as we move through the weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Really astute point. I think, like you mentioned, that the core value has kind of found its bottom. It's kind of holding up, at least for the the short to midterm. You see core prices kind of going up across the board. A lot more interest in this showdown game with Cleveland and Cincinnati, right? Joe Burrow popping to the top of the core value charts. Mainly because I think also there's an added dynamic with the dead fella contest, because you only need one dead fella and 3 other players from that lineup, and it's a core contest, so most people are going to go to Joe Burrow there. But yeah, so let me pull up the weekly gainers and losers for the week. And again, keeping with the trends of previous weeks, injuries dominated the scene, right? We had really big injury news this week. Jamar Chase going down. Breece Hall was probably the biggest one. He was going to be a superstar, this year, and likely on track for a really good season. But minus $480 right there. So, just again, you got to manage your risks with Rainmakers. It is more of a market game, and try to make the best moves there to kind of hedge against these kind of things. Mike Williams went down as well. And to highlight the gainers, right, who benefits the most from that? Of course, it's Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. T. Higgins stepping into the number 1 role, Boyd stepping into the number 2. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Hayden Hurst creeping up the charts as well there. Kenneth Walker was just absolutely smashing 2 weeks straight, so he's going to be up there. Then Josh Allen for the showdown games, as well as Travis Etienne with the trade of James Robinson, and really taking a stranglehold on that lead running back role. And in the lower roles, we'll see, DeAndre Hopkins really solidified his position, slotted right back into, a wide receiver 1 kind of role with high usage in that offense for the Cardinals there. And in the core contest, like I mentioned, Joe Burrow kind of popped up just for that reason of that dead fella contest, I think. All right. Yeah, so going through the price action, we already talked about core. It's kind of found its equilibrium at this point in time. Really great market to enter, or time to enter, if you wanted to play in core contests there. Not too much different from the daily gainers and losers. And where you have kind of this similar downward trend that we've been seeing week to week, with the obvious top quarterbacks and top wide receivers pop into the top of the charts there, with Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow, with Stephon Diggs as well. And elite, you see the same trend as it is in rare, with a kind of surprising one, right? Mahomes is kind of holding a high floor with elite, and I think that's because we're starting to see matchups and the likelihood of playoff probability kind of playing into the floors for these.
I'm curious, you guys' thoughts, JJ. If you want to go back to the core section, because this is interesting here with the bottoming out. I think this is something we might not have 100% expected. Just as the season goes on, there's less prize pools, so we expect the floors to continue to go down as the season goes on. We can see that in the rare, we can see that in the elite, but core here, it's bottoming out. As we see, do you guys think this will continue? And if so, why? I'm curious. Like, I'm not really sure. I don't know if it's gonna stay like this. Because there still is going to be obviously prize pools as we go throughout the year, and there's only so low you can get with the core. But I don't know; it might have room to go lower. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a kind of bottom here, just because it's the cheapest entry into the market, right? And a lot of these players you can actually play up into rare. So if you end up doing well in core, like I know Jalen Hurts is probably going to get the superstar tag, but for at least a moment, you can play him up into rare. And it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because there's still prizes every week. Right?
Yeah.
That 100K is not going away, right? You're still going to be competing for 100K in elite, the 10K in rare, and the prize in core as well. And you're actually, now that you mention it, that's a really good thing to think about. And I think it might be because you're actually gaining games on some of these players, right? Like the ones that are 6-0, like the Eagles, right? They're gaining a game, which is the playoff game, right? And potentially gaining more games because they're pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. I shouldn't jinx it for all you Eagles fans out there, but you guys are more than likely than not making the playoffs. And as that kind of gets cemented more and more, you'll probably see players flocking to buy these cards for these playoff bound teams.
I think it was an 88% chance to make the playoffs this last I checked. So yeah, I think they're pretty locked in.
Yeah, I think. Well, one question I do have. Obviously, we had some of the dead fellas. That drop come into play this week.
Yeah.
Is that included in this price movement, and would that impact some of maybe the upswing as an entry for people that were taking part in some of those newer cards?
Yeah, so this actually accounts for the decrease, right? Because there are players like Jalen Hurts, Tyreek Hill that kind of got affected by an increase in supply. So they actually went down, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so it's interesting to see that, we're only tracking the momentum set price here because that's the lowest floor. And actually, a lot of the cards went up outside of those ones that were affected by the increase in supply.
So yeah, that's a good point. This is only the momentum floor, so this is basically the highest mint count set of all the sets. So this is probably going to always be the lowest floor of all the sales, or this is probably going to be the lowest floor of all the cards. So the Deadfellows drop. The price of the Deadfellows cars, it's about double what everything else is. But it also pushed down the floor some. We saw, I'm not sure the percent decrease, but it was probably 10, 20% that we saw in decrease in the cars just because there's more supply. Personally, I think it could go a little bit lower, but like you mentioned, the prize pools for the rest of the season, including playoffs, are guaranteed. They're already set in place. The money's there, so it's not going to disappear. People know that at this point. We have, as you mentioned, playoff teams. A lot of these players were getting 2, 3, 4 more games than other players, so their values isn't going to drop as much. And then we have the people that really want to build up their franchise score for the offseason as well. So if they see a lot of really good players, because we know that there's going to be some sort of mechanism next year to burn these cards to help us out next season. And we also know that there's going to be some contest for this year's cards next season as well. And so we shouldn't see a Josh Allen go down to $1 because then everybody's going to be buying the Josh Allens, just scooping them up immediately because they want to get into those contests for next year. And so I don't see it going much lower. I could see, maybe another 50% at the very end of the season from what it is now. But a difference of $20 and $10 in elite players, or a difference of $10 and $5, it's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. So,
yeah, and totally agree with you there. And actually, that kind of sparked an idea in my head. Is that the lower these players go, this is a multi-entry tournament, and there comes a point where you'll start to make 2 lineups where you would have made 1, and you'll start to make 3 lineups where you would have made 2. And so it kind of preps up the floor of these because, maybe, I really like Josh Allen 1 week, but I can only afford him with 1 stack. Well, if he goes half the price, now I can suddenly afford him in 2 stacks, right? And, that will start to be truer as you get towards the end. So I think that'll start to buoy the floors of all of these tiers somewhat at some point.
Do you guys think there's any possibility or any element of onboarding more daily active users into the game? Does that play into anything here? I know we're kind of almost mid-season in the NFL. It wouldn't seem to make sense that way, but wishful thinking, do you think that plays into it at all, or is it just a little bit more just kind of randomized marketplace action?
I think we're pretty much where we're going to see the user base for this season. The things that would really boost it is either something like we saw for Top Shot, some big influencer putting out of why this is a good investment, why you should play this. That would really boost the user base. If DraftKings decided to really pump up the pack contests for regular DFS, I know there's a few contests that reward Rainmaker packs in regular DFS. If they really amped up the amount of contests doing that, really amped up the packs, then the people that are winning those would probably just come and check this out, play with the cards that they have. Probably not put much money into the actual marketplace, but there would at least be more people playing. Other than that, I think everybody that's curious about it knows about Rainmakers at this point. The influencers that haven't jumped into it probably won't jump in this season until they get confirmation that it's well worth it or a lot of fun or anything like that. So it's probably going to be pretty steady, if not a slight decline as it moves on, and people just want to sell out and move on to NBA or something else, because right now, Rainmakers takes a while to really put in place. If you're playing more than a few lineups, it takes a while to build those lineups to make sure you have all the cards. You have to enter them by hand. If you get any news Sunday morning, it takes a lot of time. It's a lot slower of a process than regular DFS. And so the prize pools, there is $100,000 prize pool, the prize pools for the most part are lower than regular DFS. So most people are focusing right now on regular DFS just because it takes less time and it's more profitable. We see that with the industry as a whole. People are leaving regular DFS for just betting player props and game totals, because all it takes for a bet is just to look at your phone, hit a button, and you're good to go. And even DFS right now is too time consuming for a lot of people. So I think until either we get a push from some big influencer that says this is amazing, everybody should get on it, or they eliminate a lot of the issues that make Rainmakers more tedious than it should be for making lineups and stuff like that, I think we're probably not going to see much of an increase anymore.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. That's kind of where my head was at as well, but always some wishful thinking along the way. Just to wrap up this awesome marketplace segment, everyone, really good information. We can just quickly touch on some overpriced, underpriced players that we see in the marketplace. JJ, did you want to take the lead there?
Yeah, so I definitely, going back to the well for myself, going to Aaron Rodgers, right, with the Green Bay Buffalo matchup this week. Obviously, I think that the limitation of having only one superstar is really improving the price of Josh Allen and depressing the price of Aaron Rodgers, because it's really unlikely that you're going to have Aaron Rodgers and win the tournament there. But you do get leverage very easily by going to Aaron Rodgers there. And I think $200, which was what I saw last night, I think it's up to $280 now, it is really way too low, especially if he's going to lose the superstar status, which we're all projecting, right? And he still has 3 showdown games ahead of him, maybe some playoff action as well. And I think you're going to need him in those showdown lineups in order to have a shot at winning outside of this week. As far as players that are overpriced, I definitely am shying away from the running backs at the higher tiers, while Kenneth Walker is really, really good. And I just don't think a running back that's not a superstar outside of maybe Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb are worth that sticker tag of about $500 to $550, right? Because Christian McCaffrey is cheaper than that, and I think I'd rather have him, even though I can probably play Kenneth Walker in more lineups.
Yeah, I'm going to go with in terms of underprice, I'm going to go with James Conner. He's coming back. I just looked at his leap price today. It was like about 160. Pretty low for a starting running back, right? In a decent offense there at Arizona Cardinals. He should be coming back this week. It looks like all reports are that he's on track at the moment. And I mean, that's a good offense. They definitely sputtered, but we know what they can do with Kyler. And now that Hopkins is there, I think that'll really propel them to be able to, pick up more first downs. Have a go-to guy, get some more chunk yardage and give them some more goal line opportunities for James Conner as well. Only 160. We saw with the core prices that's versus like Kenneth Walker's like $700 or something like that. So it's a pretty good bargain on a guy who could have a lot more touches. Maybe Benjamin. Eats into him more. He did play pretty decent. Keontae Ingram as well, the young rookie. He looked pretty decent as well in their past game. But typically they like to go with one back to getting most of the workload there in Arizona. So I like James Conner there as a bargain guy who has possibility to have some kind of bell cow usage as well. And in terms of overvalued, this might be a hot take because it is the most recent story of the NFL. But Kadarius Toney, I'm going to go with, just recently traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. He has Mahomes thrown to him now. Super talented wide receiver for sure. I do like him as a talent, absolutely. But this is also a game where you have to. It's not DFS, right? We have to factor in his season-long value as well. And he's a guy who's been hurt a ton. Like he continues to get hurt. He's been dealing with hamstrings, not really something you can rush back either. And a lot of times it's something that gets easily re-aggravated. He also has off the field issues as well. There's some risk there. And just in general, that's a crowded wide receiver room. I mean, they got Juju there. They got Mecole Hardman, who just had 3 touchdowns last week. MVS has been getting a lot of action. Obviously, Kelsey is a target hog as well. So there's a lot of mouths to feed there. And, his price got up. I saw his lead is about 170. That's more than the James Conner elite at the moment. And right now I think it's more of a prove it. He has to learn the offense as well. So I think you can probably wait a week or two if you do want Kadarius Toney. I think you could probably wait a week or two, and he'll probably be the same price, if not lower, because I doubt he gets super integrated in the offense right away. So.
Yeah, I really like that, and I love that you mentioned the injury risk, right? And I think what I'm realizing, because I'm averaging 2 to 3 injuries a week, and probably projected to go above that this week alone. With Jamar Chase and Mark Andrews yesterday, what a way to start the week. But in the NFL all the time, you see people adjusting their draft boards based on potential for injury, right? And I think that's something that we're probably going to have to take into account probably going forward is, do we want to buy these players that are high priced, that are clear histories of repeated injuries, right? Like your Keenan Allen's, for example. I don't think, while his ceiling is pretty high when he plays, that's another player that maybe, going into it in the future, I'm going to think, do I really want to risk it because his injury potential is higher than other players?
Yeah. And along the same lines, like the backups, how long is this injury? Even if they are injured, how long is this injury? An overpriced player that I was looking at on Rare is Tyler Boyd, which Tyler Boyd's a very boom or bust player. He can give you a wide receiver 1 week without Jamar Chase, or he can put up 5 points. He's not guaranteed to put up a ridiculous number of points for every single week. It's if I was looking at a chart yesterday, and he'll go all the way down to wide receiver 70, even without Jamar Chase, is some of his weeks without either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. So him being $56 is just kind of ridiculous to me, because you're basically hoping for really spike weeks. And Jamar Chase isn't out for the season either. They're very iffy on when he's going to come back, but it could be 2 weeks from now, and paying $56 for a guy that's going to drop back down to $15, $20 in 2 weeks. And I know the other thing that's influencing this is the huge game that he had last week. So it's clear in everybody's mind that this is the new norm for him, when it really, like, history has shown it's not. So that's something that people are jumping on the injury replacements and just really bumping the price up. And you got to think, okay, first, is it a Breece Hall situation where they're out for the season, there's no chance of them coming back? Or is it a Mike Williams, a DK Metcalf, a Jamar Chase, where it's like you get this player for 5-6 weeks at most? And is this price worth them being inconsistent? Because they're like, all these players going out, the replacements aren't a 1-for-1. Marquise Goodwin is not a DK Metcalf. Josh Palmer is not Mike Williams, and so on and so forth. So you can't expect their ceilings to be as high as the original players, and they're going to be very boom or bust. And because what we see in the quarterbacks is a lot of times they'll just target the other trustworthy guys that were part of the first team rather than focusing on the backup. So, yeah, Tyler Boyd, in my opinion, is overpriced. The underpriced for me is Austin Eckler. People are so focused on Josh Allen because he's a superstar, that there's some superstars that have slate winning upside that are just completely going overlooked. And Austin Eckler's one of them. He's scored the most points on a slate twice already. And his role isn't going to change. Now with Mike Williams out, it's probably going to continue. It's like a pretty much guarantee that he's going to see at least 5 targets a game, maybe 10 targets a game, because Justin Herbert's going to have his best receiver that he's going to have is maybe Keenan Allen if he's back next week. So we're just going to see Austin Eckler just get peppered over and over and over again. And people think, oh, because he's a running back, he can't hit the ceilings that the wide receivers can. Most running backs can't. But he and Josh Jacobs are so entrenched in the offense that they can put up 35-point weeks relatively easily just because DK is, or DraftKings is a full PPR site. So even if he's not getting 140 yards receiving, he's still going to get, if he gets 14 catches for 89 yards, and most of them were just dump offs, that's still over 20 points just with the catches and the yards. And if he gets in the end zone, he's been a touchdown machine so far this season. And so if he gets into the end zone, you're putting up 25, 30 points with ease. And, Josh Allen isn't a guaranteed 30 points. And so even on those slates, he's great leverage. But people right now, I believe he's the low for momentum is $56, whereas some of these other elite superstars are over $100. And so I think he's a really good buy right now if you're looking for some leverage off of the Josh Allen's leverage off of the basically any of the quarterback.
I love it.
Love it. I mean, I've been on the Austin Eckler train from earlier on, and it's a bye week, right? So I think a lot of players are not picking him up for that reason. I think it's a great time to pick him up, like you mentioned, Derek. And going back to your segment earlier on, the players that you shouldn't play, right? You really want to make your lineups with this in mind, can this player be in the top 5 of scores for their position, right? And with the superstars, it's even more magnified, right? I would even say it's can this be a top 3 superstar this week?
Great. I love the calls. I love the Eckler call. I had him penciled in as well. Just one of the very few people week in and week out that you could really lean on to carry you in a slate. And I think that is worth its weight in gold. When we're chasing points on Sunday. One reminder I will have is trade deadline is coming up here in a couple days, right? So if you want to make some, so if you want to make some speculative plays, just a couple of people I had written down that just been tracking Kareem Hunt. Obviously, he's not super cheap right now. About $6 for a rare. $28 for a rare, $6 for a core, about $200 for an elite. But obviously, if he finds a better destination where he can be the true RB1, I could see that going up a little bit. DJ Moore, another one. Just imagine if it was DJ Moore instead of Tony going over to Kansas City, So there's some room there. The talent's there, right? It's just been kind of the supporting crew. His price might be a little inflated right now from previous weeks just because he's coming off kind of his best week of the season. But something to monitor going into the trade deadline. Obviously, the other one is Elijah Moore. I think less of a risk to be traded, but he's dirt cheap. He's $1.25 in core, $7.50 in rare. Something to monitor.
If he goes to Green Bay or New York or some place that really needs a wide receiver, then he's going to do so well. And so.
Please come to New York, please. Please.
The other New York.
It's a Giants.
Yeah. Go from the Jets to the Giants. But if he's got nothing but upside if he gets traded to one of these teams that's desperate for a wide receiver. So, and he's a talented receiver. It's why he's probably so pissed off that he's barely being used because he knows he's good. So.
Yeah. And then the last name I'll throw in there is the Theric special, the Terry McLaurin. He's about $375 in core, $18 rare. Not dirt cheap, but obviously a little bit of a quarterback change there. I know that offense has been a little hot and cold throughout the course of the year, but the new quarterback feeds him, and so I think there's going to be some value with the volume he's going to get here moving forward. We'll see how that shakes out once Wentz gets healthy. See if they go to the rookie and Sam Howell at some point, but at least for now, there's some opportunity for some good volume there.
Yeah, Heineke loves throwing the deep ball, which Wentz does not. Wentz would rather check it down than throw it. Heineke's going to throw some interceptions doing that, but he knows that if he's going to throw it deep, he's probably targeting Terry McLaurin because he's his most trusted. We saw, I believe, 3 or 4 100-plus yard game and multiple touchdown games with Terry McLaurin playing with Taylor Heineke. So as long as Heineke's the quarterback, I like him.
All right. Well, that was a great marketplace segment, everyone. Thank you for all that sharp marketplace alpha. We, in addition to the marketplace game, right? We still want to focus on the top stacks of the week, and we'll kick it on over to Mr. Jakenbake here to kind of lead us through some talking points and pick out who your favorite players and plays are of the week. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at the lines this week. I always like to start at looking at the over-unders. Gives you a good sense of, where Vegas thinks all the scoring is going to be. Obviously, you want to target these games, that's going to have the most scoring, the most upside as well. So if we scroll through here, my favorite stack is going to be also in the highest scoring game of the week here, the Dolphins and the Lions. I'm going to go with Tua and Tyreek. It's it's something that's probably going to be chalky here in DFS. Like everyone knows, the Lions defense sucks. I certainly know as a Lions fan that their defense sucks. And we've seen the upside with Tua and Tyreek in this Dolphins offense. I think it was week 2 against the Ravens where they just absolutely went off. I think Tua had almost 500 yards passing, looks like 470, something like that. Both Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, had 40 plus points on DraftKings. So you really just understand like there's an insane amount of upside here. So that's why I love it. And you can bring back Amon-Ra St. Brown easily here as well. And this game could absolutely pop off. I mean, highest total on the entire slate. You could also do, if you have Waddle as well. I rarely double stack in Rainmakers because I think it can cap your upside. You really kind of need to hit the nuts unless you're in like a pretty smaller field contest. But this is the rare time where I think you can double stack. I think you can play Tua and Tyreek and Waddle. We've already seen that win a tournament in week 2 against the Ravens. So I think you can run it back if you want, if you have those cards. Tua, Waddle, Tyreek, run it back with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then throw a running back in there. And you have a pretty damn good lineup, I'd say. And unlike DFS, it's not going to get as steamed. The ownership won't be too high just because, there's only a limited amount of cards in Rainmakers. So, you're not going to catch a ton of ownership. I would just be wary. Like we talked about earlier with the cereals, be wary of your contest selection. If you're playing these big contests, like the core or the rare, the main contest with a couple thousand or more people in it, you probably want to get these lower cereals if you're going to place a stack like this because it's going to be owned. So there's something to be mindful of. That's my favorite stack. What about you, JJ?
Yeah, I'm obviously going there too. Really astute points, right? Like I think to +2 is where I'm going this week. Tyreek and Waddle, just for that one. But another game that I really like is the Cardinals and the Vikings. Gonna have that game, a lot of exposure to that game. I'm gonna do both the game stack and the single stack there. One with Murray to Hopkins with a bring back with Cook, and then another one with the Jefferson line. So we'll see what happens there. Lots of good games this week, but I think the Cardinals just defense can't stop anything. Right? You saw Andy Dalton drop 33 points on them, 33 fantasy points, and so the real limiter there is can the Cardinals keep up, right? And that's the only thing that's been hampering them week to week is sometimes their inability to score is what stops them from going off. So I would really like to cap that to the game stack there and the single game with exposure to both teams there, because if the other team isn't, if the Cardinals aren't keeping up, then the game is probably not going off.
My favorite game stack is probably actually a Derek Carr stack. The total for the Saints and the Raiders is actually really high, surprisingly. And we saw everybody go to Josh Jacobs. Everybody will want to play him again. He's just been elite the last 3 weeks that he's played. But we also saw that they basically had control of that game in the second half, and they just went to Jacobs over and over because they didn't need to throw it that much. If the Saints can keep up, I think a Derek Carr and Devontae Adams stack can go off really well. with a bring back of Chris Olave, if you want to do that and just make it a game stack. I think it's a pivot. Everybody's going to be focused on the Cardinals game. They're going to be focused on the Dolphins game, and people are just kind of, well, I'll play Josh Jacobs and I'll play Alvin Kamara, but I don't think very many people are going to actually play the passing attack from this game. So I think it's a sneaky pivot that could really put up some huge numbers.
I like it.
Yeah, I love that, Derek. Yeah, and I just want to go to a point you made earlier in the week, right? You noted pretty early on that a lot of the obvious superstars are not on the main slate, right? You don't have your Patrick Mahomes, you don't have your Josh Allen, you don't have your Austin Eckler, your Jamar Chase, right? So I think that's a really good and sharp pivot there.
Great stuff, gentlemen. I think that covered a lot of our favorite sexy. A sleeper one that I'm just going to throw out there, not as sexy, is going to be a little bit more under the radar, I think, but that Seattle-New York Giants game, I think, has a shot to shoot out. Obviously, I think Seattle's defense has been playing a little bit better of late. Giants' defense has been better than expected for most of the year, but I do think there's some room here with some Barkley and maybe some Tyler Lockett action, and obviously Kenneth Walker along the way to find some points. Some room for upside there if things work out well. So I'll throw that one out there. And obviously Philadelphia is always going to be in play.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a matter of other teams can keep up with them. But
Pittsburgh can keep up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They did with the Bucks. So
there's some room for upside there, I think, if things work out well. And at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to game stack that one. If you want to throw in some A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, call it a day, I think you'll be all right as well. So, but awesome stuff. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone there for people to digest moving into the slate this week. One topic I think that we really wanted to touch on, because it is an important strategy that's kind of come to light recently. JJ, I know you've been deploying it kind of week in and week out, and is a big part of your kind of marketplace grind here is the late swap strategy. Did you want to go ahead and quickly touch on what you're looking for and how you're going about that process?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've been experimenting with, and a strategy that I've been implementing a lot is, really utilizing the late swap, right? Trying to minimize my decision making to only 2 or 3 players going into the late games, right? So what I like to do is I start with a quarterback plus wide receiver or quarterback tight end stack +1, right, in the 1:00 games, and then if any of those have potential, then I can late swap in some players from the later games, right? And so what that really does is kind of it saves my players that I think will have potential in the late game, and I'm really making a lot of these dead lineups with placeholders just so that I can move around with a lot more flexibility there, right? Because it's always one of the worst feelings when you have let's say Jamar Chase and a Burrow stack last week, but you had Mark Andrews and blah blah blah, right, with him, and that sunk your lineup. So
Mark Andrews and Leonard Fournette, who gave me a combined 5 points when I had that Chase stack and Josh Jacobs, and then I'm just staring at that freaking 5 points and realizing there's no chance I win.
Yeah, and I had the same stack in rare, right? I had Burrow, Jones, Chase with those exact 2 players you mentioned there in rare. And so really trying to keep my lineups as live as possible. Of course, I'm vulnerable to, if a game stack pops off, right? Or if I don't have exposure to those late players. But then that kind of makes my lineup still live later on because I know I can go riskier with my late players, right? So really trying to optimize for these positions where, I can have a top 5 performance from some of these players and still be live going into the late games.
Yeah, I love it. That's really some of the marketplace and lineup building edge that will really set you apart and differentiate you and give you a real shot to obviously hit on some big paydays. You're moving forward. Obviously, JJ got super close last week. But I think moving forward with so much time left in the season, there's going to be some real opportunity here to utilize that strategy and have some success with it.
Yeah. Sorry, just to harp in a bit more on it, just let's do a thought experiment, right? Let's say you had every single quarterback and every single wide receiver one, right? If you were to play that stack every week, of each team, with, let's say, +1, and you hit on your +1, let's say you only need to hit on your +1 player because most of the time that you'll have exposure to the top stack of the week. right? And so you'll be threatening for a top 10 finish in most weeks.
Take your notes, audience. Take your notes, jot them down. Some of the Make It Rain edge there. Some great alpha, JJ. Obviously, JJ wrote a beautiful post in Metaverse HQ as well, and outlining that process for our community and really valuable insights. So thank you very much, JJ.
Yeah, and if you want that, the deep roster contests are where the late swap I think has the most edge. So if you want to read about that, you got to buy MVHQ key off of OpenSea. Join our community of traders and degens.
Yes, sir. Join us. Talk Rainmakers 24/7 with us if you want.
Just don't judge us when we're cracking Dead Fellows packs, even though we're probably losing $40 on each open.
Guilty.
The degen spirit is alive.
I made this post about how you shouldn't buy them, and I bought them anyway, as is tradition.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't be here today if that wasn't the case, right? All right. Well, thank you for all the late swap alpha there, JJ and everyone. Really good points to touch on. Let's kick it on over to the lineup challenge here. This is a weekly segment we've been doing since episode 1, and really it's geared towards showing newer players that you don't need to be some NFT or Rainmaker's whale to get in, have a good time, and win some money. We started with $50 and have been building a lineup week to week with that $50 initial bankroll, and have been able to more or less cash every single week. Obviously some weeks better than others. We've had to make some adjustments due to injury along the way. But Derek, we'll kick it on over to you, and you can talk us through some of our thoughts in building this lineup for this week.
All right. Once again, we are back to our lineup challenge. We have cashed every single week in this, which has been amazing. We decided, Zeke's got a good floor and he's pretty cheap. And he puts up 17, which is, I think, the most he's put up so far this season. So that really helped us out, especially, we had Christian McCaffrey where we really didn't want to sell him, but we also knew that he was going to get a reduced role. And so it's really nice for Elliott to pick up the slack. The issue we have this week is that Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk are off the main slate. They're playing in, I believe, London this week, tomorrow or Sunday morning. And so we have to do something about that. We also, Zeke was in a really good spot and was nice last week, but we wanted to change that out as well. And so we decided rather than do it on stream and make you guys just wait, and especially if you're listening to it, it's not really good audio just to listen to us just kind of debate. We decided before it now to make a few changes, and so we took a look at the market and we made some sales, sold Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, and Ezekiel Elliott. We ended up with about $26. So what we did with that $26 is we looked at current week's games. We saw that Jared Goff is incredibly cheap, as well as Amon-Ra St. Brown, because Jared Goff has a very high-low range, and Amon-Ra has been injured so much, and I think people are still worried that he's in concussion protocol. Whether or not I keep getting updates every single day, and I can't tell whether or not does he have a concussion. It's a phantom concussion where he's in the protocol, but he doesn't have a concussion, but he's progressing through it and he might play. But it's just, who knows? But hopefully, if he plays, he's in a really good matchup and should really do well. And then we also went to DJ Moore, who we saw last week. Once Christian McCaffrey left, that they decided DJ Moore, we're just going to throw as many balls to him as possible. He got his first touchdown of the season with PJ Walker versus the Tampa Bay defense, something we never expected to happen. And he's looking like at least a good floor play with some upside. So that's what we switched to for this week. Next week, we're going to have to, I believe Christian McCaffrey, San Francisco's off the main slate next week. So we'll have to make another change there. But we decided we wanted to go with a game stack on the highest projected total game of the slate and get a good cheap DJ Moore. I think was $4 for a DJ Moore in court, which was absolutely ridiculously low priced. And so I paid up a little bit and got a number 67 for about $6 because we had the extra cash. And I felt if we can afford it, getting some of these lower numbers is going to help us out. So that is the plan for this week. We're going into the single entry with this lineup. You guys have anything to say on that?
Yeah, no, I love that. We're selling the players that are off the slate into the showdown games. It's a strategy that everyone should probably be employing, and I love that we're doing it with this lineup here, right? Because that's the point where they're probably going to be the most expensive, right?
Yeah.
That London game. You're going to probably need Trevor Lawrence in your lineup, so a lot of players are flocking to him. You're probably going to need Kirk because that's the most obvious stack, and so it's a chance for us to upgrade our main lineup while cashing in on that opportunity there. So I love it.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling pretty good about this lineup. This is probably our most deadly one yet, I would say. This one's got a shot. It's got a shot.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. We have Lockett without Metcalf now. I mean, obviously I don't want Metcalf to get injured, but we'll see if this boosts Lockett's ceiling. I think it does at least. That's something, Jake, that you mentioned that I've noticed is that even though we don't have this big side cash of cash to enjoy, our lineup's getting better and better each week. It's getting stronger and stronger each week. We're upgrading a piece this week, that week, and it's to the point where last week, for a while there, we were above minimum cash. I think we were making $5 for a while until some of the afternoon games went off, but we never saw that in any of the others. We were just struggling to make it in cash in the weeks before. This week, it has even a better chance. And that's obviously, if you have little money, you're not going to nail it week one. But the idea is get something that's going to at least cash. If you want to put in the bankroll builder and get a little bit more, that's fine. But just week by week, upgrade one piece at a time, sell off the ones into the showdowns. And by week 10, week 11, you're going to have an incredibly strong lineup that has a good chance of making some real money each week. So,
yeah, and one thing that I should note with this one is we are past the bye week for our main stack there, right?
Yep.
The Lions already had their bye week, so this is plug and play rest of the season so long as nobody gets hurt. And it's really important to note that we dealt with an injury, right? Marquise Brown got injured, and man, we could have afforded something way higher or had a really good lineup going into this. But, we were able to weather the storm there just with good bankroll management. So kudos to us guys, showing you guys how to bob and weave and go and manage a good team.
And remember, we still have Marquise Brown sitting on the sidelines. So when he does come back later in the season, we have an option to swap out as well.
All right, well, great stuff, everyone. Thank you very much for touching on the lineup. That I think, I'm really excited to see how it works out this week. Also, another weekly segment we've been doing is the Pack Rip DGen RNG segment of the show, without fail, touching on some of our most DGen nature. So we'll kick it on over to Jake. Jake's been our pack legend here, and we'll have him pull up the pack he's going to rip and talk us through it.
Yeah, while Poop and JJ are over here winning 20K every week, I'm just stuck with my lowly legendary pack here. No, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to hit it. It was a nice hit. We'll take it. Yeah, let's get into it. One thing I want to note. When you go to your pack, you can actually download the CSV of the possible players that you get. So if you want to sweat a little bit ahead of time before you open your pack, if you want to see, what the options are, you can download that CSV and upload it here and see all the players that are possible that you could pull from this pack. So this is actually an interesting one. There's a 41% chance to hit a Rainmaker in this pack.
Let's go.
Let's go.
That's pretty interesting. Even though I'm looking through a lot of these players here, a lot of the Rainmakers are defensive players. So that's not as hot. But there are some good ones in here. We got a Nick Chubb legendary. I would not.
Oh, man, let's go.
I would not hate that. We got a Andy Dalton, the new starter for the New Orleans Saints Rainmaker in here too. We got a CD Lamb legendary. So there's some good ones in here. There's also some not some great ones in here as well. But
I see Aaron Jones.
All right.
My guy. Let's go.
Let's go. Give it to us.
Here we go.
We're due, baby.
We are due.
Cool.
What do we got? Ooh, we got the Rainmaker.
Ooh, Rainmaker.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, let's go. go.
Hell yeah!
Wait.
There's an uproll.
Andy
There's an
Dalton?
uproll.
Is that who we're shooting
I
for?
think it might be. I think it might be. Let's see.
Dalton. Red rifle,
All right,
baby.
here we go. Come on.
Never.
Quez Watkins.
Oh, pain. But,
All right. Well,
he's getting a role there. I mean, getting targets.
Yeah, I guess if Devontae or AJ Brown goes down, he could be all right. Not the best fit, but it's a rainmaker at least. So.
Wait for a showdown slate.
Yeah.
we'll take the uproll though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
That was a sweat. I liked it. That's all we can ask for is a sweat.
We'll take
Yeah, it was a rainmaker. I guess I can't complain too much. Huh?
Yeah, we will take the emotional roller coaster. Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
You gotta hit one of these, man. I mean, you've opened 3, I think, on stream and have not hit once. So next one's coming. Next one's due.
I'm getting a report from our trusted colleague Relic here that the Quez Rainmaker floor is 577. So
It's not bad.
I'll take that. It's not bad.
Awesome. That's awesome. That gives you some options. If you, like Eric said, you want to hang on to it for a showdown slate or something, or sell into it, you can see that pumping up maybe to just $650, $700, maybe even more into a showdown slate or something like that. So some options there for us, but we'll take it. At the end of the day, we will take it.
I'd rather take 20K. But
well, that's coming too.
Coming. What are you
doing? Maybe this week.
Yes, indeed. Well, gentlemen, go ahead.
We've completed our homework, me and Poop. It's just your guys' turn. You gotta
no pressure or anything, no pressure. But
I'm gonna just go to complain to Mark Andrews and say, hey, stop getting injured. So,
dude, what are they doing over there? What are they doing? I saw John Harbaugh already saying, I wasn't serious. Man, are we going to get baited again next week? Is that what's going to happen?
It seems to be the new trend. Put them in questionable, and the moment they feel a little bit of a tweak, and they're out. And it's like, then don't play them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They won the game without him or Rashad Bateman. They didn't need him in the first place.
Yeah. We know football is a game of attrition, you know, so... Yeah, I think some of these coaches are letting it get in their head a little bit. And that's always the game we play. Questionable is legitimately a 50-50 call. And maybe, some of these training staffs are giving them some bad info as well along the way. So,
or the players are begging to play. They're like, I'm good.
Yeah,
so true.
Yeah.
So true.
Well, very good, gentlemen. That was a juicy, meaty, and fuego episode of Make It Rain. I really enjoyed that one. I think we got into a nice groove, really hit on some really, really good strategies and alpha for the upcoming week. So kudos to all of us. We will look to have another successful week. Theric, Jake, eyes on you. We will see. No pressure, of course. So we will take anything we can get along the way here. But really, at the end of the day, again, really nice to see some week-to-week success from all of us. Hopefully this week, we will fare better than it sounds like Tom Brady is, with this divorce breaking news coming through right now, hot off the press. But we will look to, sad to see, but I'm sure he'll be just fine at the end of the day. He'll land on his feet somewhere.
Do some high knees and get ready to win. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But again, thank you guys very much. Good luck this upcoming week to you guys, to everyone else. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe on this YouTube video or on Twitter, anywhere you want. We appreciate the engagement. Go ahead and tell us what some of your favorite plays are, some of the things you're looking at in the marketplace. We'll look to touch on them here in upcoming episodes for sure. With that all being said, good luck to everyone this week. Let's make it rain.